Namaskaram. Smruti Purananam Alayam Karunalayam Namami Bhagavadpadam Shankaram Lokashankaram. Welcome to the 4th Global Festival of Oneness, where we celebrate the philosophical, poetic, spiritual, and literary works of Jagadguru Sri Adi Shankaracharya. This month-long festival started on the Adi Shankara Jayanti on 24th of April, and we have 2 sessions every day. And thank you all for your support in joining. Today, I have the distinct pleasure to host Srimati Neema Majmudar. A few words about Neema. She is not new to the Indica Moksha community. She has been with us from the very first Festival of Oneness. Today, Neema ji is going to be speaking to us about Sadachara Anusandhana of Shankaracharya. Neema Majmudar ji studied Indian philosophy with Swami Dayananda Saraswati, who we all know as a well-known contemporary teacher of Advaita Vedanta. In addition to traditional Vedic studies, Neema ji has a number of years of experience as a professional with the United Nations in the field of economic and social development in multiple countries in New York, Thailand, and Fiji. She also has a master's degree in international affairs from Columbia University, New York. So this is how she is able to connect the Vedantic wisdom with some of the more contemporary events and of the day. Since 1999, Neema has been giving conferences, conducting seminars, and retreats across the world in the domain of personal development and philosophy with her husband, Sri Surya Tahoraji. They have created a bilingual site in French and English. The site's URL is wisdomofrishis.com. Wisdomofrishis.com. She co-authored multiple books, Living the Vision of Oneness, which is based on Bhagavad Gita. And recently, she and her students, look at the parampara here. Neema ji and her students, Nandini and Saloni, they published a illustrated book titled Finding Meaning in Life with Bhagavad Gita. I'm looking forward to reading it. So Neema ji, thank you very much for your support and for sharing your words of wisdom. You may start now.
Thank you very much, Dr. Ravi Shankar ji. Thank you, Nitin ji, for inviting me. So I will start now. I am on. I'll start with a prayer. Shruti Smriti Purananam Alayam Karunalayam Namami Bhagavadpadam Shankaram Lokashankaram Shankaram Shankaracharyam Keshavam Badarayanam Sutra Bhashya Krutau Vande Bhagavantau Punah Punaha Ishwaro Gururatmeti Murti Bheda Vibhagine Vyomavadvyaptadehaya Dakshinamurtaye Namaha. Om Sahanavavatu Sahanau Bhunaktu Sahaviryankaravavahai Tejasvinavadhitamastu ma vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Okay, so what we saw last time where we ended is that this reality, which is Satchidananda, it supports, both ignorance and knowledge, which are opposed to each other. Both are within this Satchidananda Atma, right? So how do we understand that practically? So that what it means is that when we are born, we are ignorant about everything. We are ignorant about the world and we are ignorant about the self. Then we use different, everything exists within this reality, which is Satchidananda Atma, but ignorance can be removed. And how do we remove the ignorance? Ignorance can be only removed by the virodhi, which is knowledge. And about things of the world, we generally use perception and inference to remove ignorance of different things in the world. But for knowing the nature of I, our perception doesn't work because we only see the objects. We cannot come to know the final reality, which is the truth of all objects. So we need an independent means of knowledge. So we need Veda as a pramana, and using the Veda as a pramana, right? It's Shabda pramana. And when the words are used as a pramana by a competent teacher who belongs to a parampara, then, we have seen in this text, Shabda get Shakti. And what kind of Shakti? To remove your ignorance and to, so what removes your ignorance? Knowledge removes your ignorance. Then what? So both ignorance and knowledge are sustained by this final truth, which is Sat Chit Ananda, that we have seen. So now we go to the next verse, and the next verse is Ajnanam cha anyatha jnanam mayam etam vadanti te ishwaram mayinam vidyat maya atitam niranjanam. This is very interesting, because suppose you ask a question, where did ignorance come from, right? What is the starting point of ignorance? So what we say is ignorance is anadi. If it started, then before ignorance, right? It started, there must be knowledge, the opposite of ignorance. And if there was knowledge, then how can, ignorance start, right? So this is a logical problem. And therefore we say ignorance is also anadi. And where do we trace it to? To Maya Shakti of Ishvara. So Maya Shakti is the potential, right, of all knowledge and all power in the potential form, which then manifests as Jagat. And when it manifests into Jagat, then there are two, Maya has twofold powers. One is what we call Vikshepa Shakti, which is capacity to become many, as though many. And the other capacity is what Avarana Shakti. Avarana Shakti means even though everything is manifestation of one reality, it is concealed from us. It is what it is veiled from us. Therefore, we don't recognize it. We see Jagat as separate from us, and we see ourselves as a small individual, and everything as, independent of us. And we don't have any understanding of what Ishvara is. We don't understand this Jagat as manifestation of Ishvara. So why don't we have that? Because there is veiling power of Maya, which doesn't allow us to see the world as nothing but the Ishvara. Until we decide to remove this ignorance, right? That ignorance rules the roost, and it can go on for lifetimes until you decide to, right, get to know this truth. So this is why it is, this ignorance is, it is part of Ishvara capacity to veil the reality. But Ishvara, right, is not, so we are under the spell of Maya. But Ishvara is a wielder of Maya. So he is Mainam, and he is not confused. I mean, Ishvara is not confused. Ishvara is neither he or she. It is all knowledge and all power. But and this is why that knowledge and power itself has this final knowledge. And this is why through the Upanishads, what Ishvara is teaching us or giving us key to the creation and making us see that, hey, all that is here is one. And that we can use this knowledge and we can help ourselves, right, to remove this ignorance. So the next one. So this is a very interesting verse. Maha Moha Andhakare Asmin Devaha Varshati Leelaya Tasyaha Vrushtehe Viramaya Prabodha Eka Samiranaha. Okay. So here, as I told you that what there is, as though there is an imagery that is given. Suppose there is sun and then there is cloud, then you don't see the sun. But what is interesting is that the cloud which covers the sun, that cloud is evident to you because of the presence of the sun. So without the sun, you can't even see the cloud. But now that you see the cloud, what it covers the reality, which is the sun. So what is, so now, all that is here is Ishvara. This is something which is an incredible thing, that all that is here is Ishvara, and Ishvara is nowhere in sight for us. And we don't, we only see the objects, and we could totally miss the presence of Ishvara. And so there, and plus we have so many opinions about what Ishvara is. Some people say, oh, there is no such thing, there is no cause of the universe, and they totally reject it. Some people think that it is away from you. So what does it mean? That is all, we are all under the spell of Maya, having different contentions. It is like, in the dream, right? Two characters in the dream are discussing, and they're asking each other, right? Where do we come from? What is the cause? And one person says, oh, there is no cause. It cannot be there, right? I don't see any cause. I only see the objects. So there is no cause. And the other person says, oh, the cause is really away because you don't see it here. So it's away. What both the characters in the dream totally miss the fact that the cause is very much that the dream world is not separate from the cause of the dream, which is you. So you are both the dreamer as well as the dream. And that is something which is missed out. So this is what we do. And now what happens? So that Mahamoha Andhakari. So we all live in what? Andhakara. Andhakara doesn't mean that we are all totally deluded, but with reference to this particular reality, right? It's totally not available to us. And while we are, under the spell of Maya, what about Ishvara? Here, what? Asmin Devaha Varshati Leelaya. That's when we are, what Ishvara is on the other side of Maya. So as I told you, Ishvara is, the Maya is the capacity of Ishvara. So Ishvara is not under spell of Maya. Ishvara wields the Maya, is a master of Maya. And therefore, there is no, delusion for Ishvara. And the minute you choose to know the reality, definitely the teaching will appear, the teacher will appear, and you can, help yourself to this pramana, and you can get to know the truth, right? So this is the thing that all you have to do is to pray for the truth, and then, Ishvara makes it possible for you. Verse number, the next verse, number 42. Gnanam drik drishyayoho bhanam vignanam drishya shunyata ekam eva advayam brahma na asti iha nana kinchana. Okay. So now, what is this so-called, how does Shruti, it must use a certain methodology to make us see the truth, right? So these methodologies which are used by Vedanta, they are called prakriyas, right? So the teacher has to use those prakriyas. They are leading prakriyas. If you keep telling the person that you are Brahman, and maybe that is the truth, but the person doesn't know first of all what is Brahman and how I am Brahman. So therefore, the person has to be led to discover that. So one of the famous prakriyas is what we call drug drishya viveka. And what is this drug drishya viveka? We start with analysis of who we are, and what is it that, and certain definitions are given, and that is that whatever you objectify, whatever you come to know is drishya, and the nature of the knower is what we call druk. Now, with reference to the world, we don't have any confusion, right? We don't confuse the mountains and the the sun and the moon and the rivers as drik, we understand it to be drishya, the object of our perception. But where we make a mistake is our body. So what in this drik drishya viveka, what you are told is, just as you observe everything else, this body and its changes are what available for you to know. So body is not drik, but it is drishya, right? Similarly, the mind and its thoughts and its changing moods are known to you. So mind is also drishya. It is something which is known by you. So what is this druk in whose presence everything gets known to you, including your body and mind? So that druk swarupa is sat and chit. It is existent and it is of the nature of awareness, because of which everything is known by you, including your own body and mind. Now, but then if you really create two categories like that, it will still be Dvaita, right? One is Drik and the other is Drishya. So the next part, the next line of the verse, here he says, what Drishya Shunyata. This is a very important part of Vedanta, that first you have to separate Drik from Drishya. Then you can't leave two realities. Then what do you need to do? You need to swallow drishya jagat as mithya. So what does it mean? Anything drishya, right, which is including your body and mind and the entire universe, is nothing but forms within forms, within forms, within forms. And what is the end? So you can't find any building block of this body is nothing but cells are nothing but atoms are nothing but particles, so that it just goes on and on and on. And if you use the Vedic model, then they are just nothing but 5 elements. So that means so there is no absolute reality to the body. So where does it end? It ends with Brahman, right? So that everything just reduces to something else and something else until you come to only Sat and Chit. So what is the relationship now? Initially, what we thought is we were body and mind. That was said to be Drishya. And what is Druk? Druk is Satchidanandatma. Then what was done? The whole Drishya Jagat is swallowed because just as it is true for the body, everything else is like that, right? So therefore, everything else depends upon Brahman for its existence, and Brahman remains independent of everything. It doesn't depend upon anything in this universe for it to exist, and therefore you come to non-duality, Advaita. So this is what is highlighted, right? So that means what iha nana asti kinchana. So there is no second. It doesn't mean that there are no forms, but what forms do not have any independent reality other than from Brahman. So this is how you establish ekam eva advitiyam advayam Brahma. Okay. Now, 44. Aparoksham shastrajam jnanam vignanancha atmadarshanam atmanaha brahmanaha samyak upadhi dvaya varjitam. Okay. So what is this knowledge? This knowledge is paroksha jnanam. So it is not actually, it is shastrajam. It is shastrajam. So whatever we know in this world with our own means of knowledge. So we have pratyaksha and anumana. Pratyaksha is our perception and anumana is inference, which is also then based on perception. But through that method, as I told you earlier, you can't come to know Brahman. So this knowledge is shastrajam. It is born of the words of Shastra. And what do the words of Shastra do? They give you Atma Darshanam. How do they give you Atma Darshanam? They can't produce Atma. Atma is already limitless. It's already all pervasive. What do? They just remove the clouds. They just remove your ignorance so you can own yourself and you can understand that this is my true nature. I'm my druk, I'm a druk and I'm not drishya, and druk swarupa is Brahman. So this is what, that Brahman that you understand is what tu upadhi varchitam. So that Brahman is the appearing in two different, it has two different appearance. Satyam Gnanam Anantam Brahman. Samashti Upadhi is Ishvara, and Vyashti Upadhi is Jiva, the individual. Like there is one water, but it has two different appearances. One is ocean, which is the total, and the other is wave, which is an individual. But both of them are upadhis. They are only appearances. Water remains water, H2O, right? So the wave has as much full H2O, and ocean also has full H2O. It's not part or anything. So this is how what same Satchidananda appears as two upadhis. One is what we call Maya Upadhi or Ishvara, and the other is Jiva. But both of them have their being in this final truth. And this is what the person understands through Shastra. 45. From Artha Vishayam Jnanam Vignanam Tatpada Ashrayam Padayoho Aikya Bodhaha Jnana Vignana Sannita. Okay, so how is this, this is an equation, as we have seen. And what is that? It's not just that you are Brahman, it's an equation. It's an equation between you and Ishvara. So you need to first understand what Ishvara is, because the knowledge is from Ishvara. Ishvara is revealing all that is here is me. And Ishvara is also revealing that my essential nature is same as your nature. So you can't skip Ishvara in this pursuit. So what there is, apparently, there is a difference. So what individual has an upadhi, and what is that? Jiva upadhi includes what? Your own physical body, sthula sharira, sukshma sharira, your subtle body, and your causal karana sharira. And Ishvara is what? What is Ishvara upadhi? Virat, the entire physical universe. Hiranyagarbha, the entire subtle universe. And Maya, which is the entire causal universe. So what that there is one individual here, and there is samashti there, total. But where is an equation? Equation is in the lakshyartha. And what is this lakshyartha? Both of them, right? Even though the appearances are very different, they have their being in Satyam Gnanam Anantam Brahma. So this is how when you understand the equation, it is not what the vachyartha of Jiva or vachyartha of Ishvara, it is lakshyartha, what the Shruti is teaching you as the essential reality, the intrinsic nature of both you and Jiva. And that is Brahman. So that is what is pointed out. The next one. Atma Anatma Vivekam Cha Gnanam Ahuhu Manishinaha Agnanam Cha Anyatha Loke Vignanam Tanmayam Jagat. Okay, so now what is the difference between the wise people and unwise people? So here, what we need to understand is that the only difference between wise and unwise is that not that they experience anything different, right? So they still experience the same world, but what is figured out. So this is technically called sopadika adhyasa. And what is sopadika adhyasa? There are some adhyasa where we make a common mistake, right? So till we discovered that the earth is round, we all, based on our perception, we thought that the earth is flat, or what we thought is the sun rises in the eastern sky and it sets in the western sky. Until it was discovered that the earth is not flat, but it is round, and the sun is actually stationary. It's the earth which is moving. But even when we remove this error, right? Now we are no longer confused by the perception, but the perception still remains. The perception still remains. It's not like you come to know that the earth is round, so now you see a round earth. You still see the flat earth. The only thing is that you understand why it appears flat, but you know in reality it is round. So this is similarly, right? You also understand why a sun appears to be rising and setting because of the movement of earth. But what is the reality? Sun is relatively stationary. Similarly, for a wise person, they still see all the objects. It's not that, they are just absorbed in something, in that consciousness, and they lose, perception of the world. They see it exactly as everybody else. The only thing is now their eye is no longer put in the body and mind. They understand that what my eye, my essential nature, Drik Swarupa, is Brahman. And the forms that the wise person sees, the wise person, he or she understands that that they are just through this Satyam Gnanam Anantam Brahman has the capacity to manifest the universe. And with reference to that capacity, it's called Ishwara. And in the potential, it is called Maya Shakti. And that means where we see nothing but objects, the wise person also sees the objects. But what is the conclusion? That they are just manifestation of Ishvara, and all that is here is Ishvara. So what does it mean? That the person sees the same thing, but the conclusion has changed. And that's a very big change. It doesn't have to have, we think that the wise person, for it's some other vision altogether, but it is not like that. The person continues to see the world as before, but all the conclusions have changed based on inquiry. Okay. Now, the next verse. The method, there is another which is very important prakriya, which is used in the shastra, which is called Anvaya Vyatireka. So let's, the next verse talks about it. Anvaya Vyatirekabhyam sarvatra ekam prapashyati yattu vrittijam gnanam vignanam gnana mantrakam. Okay. So here, how does, so as I told you, you cannot remove yourself from the body. And if you were, then what would happen? You will give a location to Brahman. And why? Because you are no longer in the body, then you are located somewhere else. And that will make Brahman limited. So what all pervasive means, it has to pervade everything. Like gold pervades the whole world of ornaments, or like clay pervades the whole world of pots. It is in and through every pot, and it's still free from being pot. So there is no separate location. So how, if there is no separate location, how do you get to know that, right, where my body is, where my mind is, that's exactly where Brahman is. So there is a method which is called Anvaya Vyatireka. So what is this? It's an ingenious method. What it shows is, what it actually starts with a premise, and that is that if whatever is your intrinsic nature, you can't give up. And whatever is your not your intrinsic nature comes and goes. So through this Anvaya Vyatireka, what happens is if body was your physical body was your intrinsic nature, it'll stay with you in dream and it'll stay with you in deep sleep. So of course, the physical body is there. That's why you are able to dream and sleep, of course. But in dream and in deep sleep, you lose your connection with the physical body. So what does it mean? You remain, but your connection with the body goes. And what does it show? So what the body is variable, and it is not your true nature. Similarly, the mind, right? So in dream, you don't have a connection with your physical body, but with the mind, you create a world of your own and you start living from it. But what happens in the deep sleep? Even the mind resolves. So as the mind resolves, that also cannot be your intrinsic nature. So what does it mean? Those are variable, they come and go, and you still remain. And what does it mean? So that which is invariable, that invariable presence which is with you in the waking, in the dream, and in the deep sleep, that invariable presence is you. That is your intrinsic nature, that you are never able to shed everything else comes and goes. So this is the method through which you are shown that please don't look for that consciousness somewhere else. It is always with you, but it is hidden. How is it hidden? Because when again in the waking, the body comes, what happens is, we get totally identified with the body and mind. And what happens is that invariable presence is completely missed by us. So this is an ingenious method for us to know that this, what we are searching for, this Brahman, is always with us, right? So this is the work of Maya, something that we have, something which is our true nature. We don't know and we keep looking, right? So this is the method which shows you that what you are searching for is with you. Next word. Ajnana dhvamsakam jnanam vignanancha ubhayatmakam. Jnana vignana nishtha iyam tatsat brahmani cha arpanam. Okay. Now, here is something which is also interesting, because the tradition actually makes a little bit of a distinction. So there are, as I keep emphasizing this, that the first time you hear that you are Brahman, it doesn't mean that you understand it. There is a whole pursuit. So we have different names, right? So that then there is no confusion. So the first name is Mumukshu. Who is a Mumukshu? So Mumukshu is the one who is searching for freedom. Then that Mumukshu turns into Jignasu. And who is a Jignasu? Who has understood that the freedom that I'm searching for is only going to come by, right? The problem is that of ignorance. I have concluded I'm small and I'm searching through objects, fullness, but that I'll never get. So what that fullness is my true nature. So now what do I need to do? I need to remove the ignorance about my true nature. And therefore the person turns from Mumukshu to Jignasu. And Jignasu is Natu Michuhu. So the person who wants to know one's true nature, and one who wants to know reality, the reality of Ishwara, reality of oneself, reality of Jagat. Then the person prepares oneself, listens to Shastra, and at one point, what there is Vritti Jnanam. And what does Vritti Jnanam mean? That whatever Shastra is communicating, that's exactly what the mind has understood totally and clearly, right? And there is no deviation from that. So you are not imagining new things, you're not adding your own interpretations, you are not understanding it vaguely. So you have totally cleared it from all kind of doubts and all kind of imaginations. And what Shastra wants to reveal, that's exactly what is shining in your buddhi. And from then on, there is no further mistake which is possible, right? It's no longer possible for you to go back to making a mistake about the reality. So this person is called Brahmavit. But then the Shastra also talks about something called Brahmanishta. So what is that little distinction? So that little distinction is made that suppose you really are Brahmavit, sometimes, right, the past samskaras, right, of the mind, its ways of being, it's so forceful that sometimes your mind is still, it's not that the even if the mind goes off, right, the knowledge is very, very clear that what I am Drik Swarupa, I'm not the mind. So the person is not confused, but the phala of jnanam, right? If the mind goes off a little bit, then what, again, there is a slight, there can be, a slight anxiety or whatever, anything that the mind goes through. So you don't totally enjoy the result of the knowledge, that shanti, or that, fullness, that completeness. So that means when all those vrittis of the mind, those inclinations of the mind are totally taken care of, then what, the person becomes Brahmanishta. So that means there are 4 terms: Mumukshu, Jignasu, Brahmavit, and Brahmanishta. So what, we have to walk the journey until the time that we not only get the clarity of knowledge, but we get the fruit of knowledge, which is really the freedom, right? So this is what is highlighted. Next verse. Bhokta sattva gunaha shuddhaha bhoganam sadhanam rajaha bhogyam tamo gunam prahuhu atma cha esham prakashakaha. Okay, so now one mistake that we keep making is what we can't somehow get rid of our connection with this individual. So what happens is unknowingly we keep our identity with this person, right? This bhokta. Bhokta is the enjoyer, right? When I say fulfillment, contentment, fullness, happiness, what happens? It's a mind which has all these different vrittis. And then what happens is you still think that somehow the connection with the mind remains. And the knowledge is to understand what mind is mithya and Brahman is satya, right? So here it's a very beautiful thing that the Bhashyakara, Adi Shankaracharya ji, he says, if you were bhokta, then there is no Advaita. Why there is no Advaita? Because bhokta is the enjoyer, then the object of enjoyment and the means of enjoyment, they will all be separate from you. So how is Advaita understood? What the Advaita, the only way it can be understood is I am, right? What the aham atma tesham prakashakaha. So what does it mean? All three, what the bhokta, the enjoyer, the object of enjoyment, and means of enjoyment. All three, right? They exist within this Atma, in whose presence all three get lit up, and I am none of them. So this is what it lights up all. So this is why imagery is given that suppose you go, there is a beautiful imagery, and that there is a light and there is a nartaki. Nartaki means a dancer. And the dancer dances, right? And the people, the audience, they get completely absorbed in seeing the dance, and they are all moved by the dance. But what they miss out is the light, which lights up the nartaki. So this is exactly like that. The dancing mind is the one which keeps dancing, and we all get totally engrossed in that. And what we miss out is this, this final light, which is light of our self-revealing light, which lights up the mind. So what does it mean? It is the truth. Brahman is the truth. It's not only bhokta, it is the truth of bhokta, the enjoyer, the object of enjoyment, and the means of enjoyment. Means of enjoyment is vritti, through a vritti, and the vritti has its content in awareness. If you look at who you are, then also the body resolves in awareness. And if you look at any object in the universe, it is also forms within forms. It is made up of 5 elements, and that also resolves in Brahman. So that is, Brahman is truth of all three. That is highlighted. The next verse. Brahma adhyayana sanyuktaha brahmacharya rataha sada sarva brahma iti yaha veda brahmachari sa uchyate. Now here, what is interesting is in the Vedic vision of life, so you're given different ashramas, right? So we have varna, ashrama, dharma, so you go through different stages of life. So in common parlance, we use this, right? So there are 4 stages. What are the 4 stages? Brahmachari, grahastha, vanaprastha, and sannyasa. So what Bhashyakara is doing is, he is actually showing who is a real brahmachari, who is a real grahastha, right? And who is a real vanaprastha, and who is a real sannyasi. So what it shows is that what is the common meaning is, who is a brahmachari? The one who is studying and who is dedicating their life. They have not yet entered grahasthashram. They are not yet married. They don't have responsibilities. But who is, so that you can be a college student and then you are still a brahmachari. But Adi Shankaracharya says, who is a real brahmachari? Brahma adhyayana sanyuktaha. A real brahmachari is the one who is what? Not losing track or losing sight of Brahman. So that is the real pursuit, which is really going to give you what you are looking for. So even when you are studying other things, but still you don't give up this pursuit of Brahman, because that is, as we have seen, that there is Paravidya and Aparavidya. And Paravidya is Yaya Aksharam Brahmya Kamyate. So by which you will come to know. So that means a real brahmachari is the one, even if they have other roles, other studies that they are making, but study of Brahman, right, is something which is there, and that can be at any stage. So now, brahmacharya rataha. So what, and also the study of Brahman requires certain growth. So what, you also pay attention to the mind, and you pay attention to your growth. You pay attention to your raga dvesha, your emotions, and you correct it all so that you become eligible for this knowledge. So that person is a real brahmachari, right? Not just somebody who is, just studying something else. Of course, you can study something else, but not when you incorporate Brahman, then definitely, then you're real brahmachari. So this is why brahmachari itself comes from Sanskrit word, and it's beautiful. Brahmani charitum Sheelam Yasya, right? The one who has a complete commitment to Brahman is brahmachari. Then grahastha. Who is grahastha? Grahastha guna madhyastha shariram gruham uchyate gunaha kurvanti karmani na aham karta iti buddhiman. Right? So who's a real grahastha? So grahastha is the one who is actually, in common parlance, somebody who's married and who has relationships and who's working, and he is playing different roles. So this is grahastha in our common understanding. What Bhashyakara says is, who is a real grahastha? Who actually who understands that buddhiman. And what does it mean? That gunaha kurvanti karmani na aham karta iti. So even while the person is completely engaged in playing all the roles, right? And the person is playing, let's say, a role of a husband with reference to his wife, a child with reference to his parents, parent with reference to his own children, employer, employee, community member. The person could be doing everything. But what does the person, because the person never gives up the study of shastra, right? What the person understands, that these roles are the roles that I'm playing, which will help me to mature, learn my lessons in life, and make my contribution to the world. But ultimately, what do I need to understand? Guna guneshu vartante. So what the body and mind, right, are related. This individual is related to many others and is playing its role. But I am akarta. That druk swarupa is the one which never gets engaged in any action at all. In whose presence all the activities take place, all your roles get played. And that's why sometimes, right, if you have this perspective, you can actually play your roles much better, because you don't get caught in all these different roles that you have to play, and you never lose sight of the truth. So this is the one who is really buddhiman grahastha, right? That naham karta, but guna guneshu vartante. Now, who is vanaprastha? So, kim ugraihi tapobhihi cha yasya gnanamayam tapaha harsha amarsha vinir muktaha vanaprastaha saha uchyate. So in our traditional understanding, who is a vanaprastha, who then at one point says that, I have played, all my roles, I have provided for everyone, and now I'm going to withdraw, right? Withdraw. And generally, vanaprastha means they go a little bit outside. Physically, if you're in the same home, it's very hard to withdraw. So they actually, go a little bit away and they spend their life. So this is normally the meaning of Vanaprastha. But Adi Shankaracharya says, who is a real Vanaprastha? Who has learned through the interactions, right? Through the life of Brahmacharya and Grahastha, who have learned to master two things. And what is this? Anger. So anger, so what does it mean? That whether you are staying at X place or Y place, right? So if you're an angry person, right? So you can remove yourself from that place, but the angry person carries oneself to that to wherever the person goes. That the person can get angry with whatever, right? The birds who are disturbing his meditation, or passerbys, or a car which is passing, which is making noise. So what it means is, a real Vanaprastha is, through these life experiences, the person has gained a certain mastery, and mastery over their emotions. Joy is wonderful. It is, you're not supposed to make your life just joyless and any rasaless. But what given certain joys that you have, they are all sattvic joys, and not, you don't become arrogant, you don't become conceited, you don't begin to look down on others, you don't lose your connection with Ishvara. You can get simple joys in what? Looking at the sun, looking at Ishvara's vibhuti. So what does it mean? That the normal seeking and getting more, and greediness, and never being satisfied, that disposition goes away. So that is the person who is a real Vanaprastha. Now, who is a sannyasi? The next one. Deha abhyasaha hi sannyasaha na eva kashaya vasasa na aham dehaha aham atma iti nishchayaha nyasa lakshana. So sannyasi is the one who is generally what, the person, he or she leaves the normal pursuits in pursuit of knowledge, and this in fact declares to Ishvara that there is only one goal I have in life, and that is to know you and to know myself. And I have no other agenda in life. And I'm not a competitor, and neither I'm a competitor with anybody around on this earth, nor I'm a competitor with all the devas, right? Because through Brahma, as you begin to be mature and prayerful, you get a lot of punya. So you become eligible for all those positions, but you declare that you're not interested in any of this position. So that's a sannyasi. But what Bhashyakara says here is that ultimately, who is a sannyasi? Who understands na aham dehaha, aham atma iti, right? So I am not this individual who is taking sannyasa to study. I am this atma which shines in its own glory, and it in everything shines after, right? And everything has its being in this atma, and this atma is self-existent and self-evident. So I am that final truth. So that person is a real sannyasi, because the person is a gnani. The person knows the truth and is reveling in the truth. So that person is real sannyasi. So this is why even in our tradition, we make a distinction. So we have what we call Vividisha sannyasa and Vidvat sannyasa. Vividisha is, in order to gain the knowledge, you, the individual, decides to give up all the other roles and only pursue knowledge. So that is called Vividisha. But Vidvat sannyasa is that what the person who knows the truth, then what is the person is already free. And that freedom, it becomes your nature, not because you have chosen a particular lifestyle, but right, you know your identity with Ishvara. So you're a free person, right? So there are no further obligations. The life purpose is served, right? So this is a real sannyasi. Now, the last one, and that is Sadacharam imam nityam ye Anusandhana buddhaha samsara sagarat shigram muchyante na atra samshayaha. So Adi Shankaracharya ji concludes the book by saying that anybody who studies this book, it's a very beautiful book. So thank you, Nitin ji, for suggesting this book, because it incorporates all these, different things that we do, Agnihotra, prayers. It shows its purpose, and at the same time converts those into contemplation, and shows the final truth. So that is something, it's not about leaving all of this and only contemplating. Through your daily activities, you add this whole dimension of knowledge, right? So nothing external has to change, but you can become a jnani. So this is a brilliant book, and thank you. And Adi Shankaracharya ji promises that anybody who reads this book and contemplates on it will get shigram, right? Not too far away, right? The person will be freed from all afflictions and samsara, which is sagara, which is otherwise so vast and so difficult to cross. So thank you. This is the end of the book, and I'm happy that I was able to do it quite in time. There are still about 10
you
minutes.
did. You did extremely well. You did not rush, and it was very, very, very clearly explained. Thank you so much. There are lots of questions, so let's go through some of them. I think that there's still this confusion among the audience that do we still need to do idol worship and name chanting, or is it still Maya? So the question is, by idol worshipping and name chanting, will there be any enlightenment, or is it still considered a Maya? So I think, please answer that.
See, on its own, the whole book is about that, right? I mean, if you just go to a temple every day and if you keep doing puja, by that you may not get, right, the moksha, because moksha is about removing ignorance, right? And ignorance will not just magically go away. You need to expose yourself to the teaching, but that doesn't mean that going to the temple is useless. Please understand this. This is so important, because if all that is here is Ishvara, please understand this. And we are not used to seeing Ishvara in and through Jagat. So we see the Jagat through our own eyes. And what is this eyes? I'm a scared person. I'm afraid of Jagat, or I distrust Jagat, or I think that world is out to get me. That person can never understand the truth. So the first thing that we have to do is that frightened person has to begin to see the presence of Ishvara everywhere. How are you going to begin to magically see the presence of Ishvara everywhere from one day to the next? So you need to now not look at the sun as just a bunch of atoms. You have to begin to look at the sun as blessing. So that intelligence which has made the sun what it is, which is constantly blessing you. And you have to do namaskara to that sun. You don't have to see the water as just H2O atoms. You have to begin to see the water as another glory of Ishvara. You have to see the mountains. You have to see the plants. You have to see other human beings. Everywhere you have to see the glory of Ishvara, right? And that unless you do it, your mind is still this individual who is, dealing and struggling with the world. That mind has to go. And in addition to all of that, there is a method that is given in our tradition. And what is that? That there is a place, right, which is what we call a temple, right? And nobody worships. Our teacher was saying, nobody worships idols, right? What is this idol worship? Somebody told us that we are worshipping idols. So we started repeating it. We are worshipping idols. All that is here is Ishvara. You can invoke Ishvara in any given form, and you can superimpose on that particular form whole of Ishvara.
Fantastic response. Fantastic. I just, the fact that you actually brought out the idol worship is not at all an Indian concept at all. Somebody imposed it on us. So Thank you for clarifying it.
You know what, Dr. Ravi Shankar, and I want to make it absolutely clear, right? I used to live in Fiji, as you explained to me, right? Introduced me.
In the intro.
And, there were a lot of tourists in Fiji. And one of the persons who was giving a show for the tourists is introducing himself as what we were barbarians and British came and they what civilized us.
Oh
So
my
he
goodness.
learned it. He learned it. What his grandparents learned it, and he is repeating it. And Fiji is independent for many years, but we just go on repeating it. Somebody told us we worship idols and we buy it and we keep repeating it and we keep negating it. We don't see the beauty. We don't see what a brilliant culture it is, right? You have to understand all that is here is Ishvara and Brahman being the truth of this Ishvara. Your relationship with the world has to change. The forms have to be seen as manifestation of Ishvara. And this is an ingenious method, right? Of taking one form and superimposing whole of Ishvara there and relating to it.
Fantastic.
And in that relationship, you get well, right? And that's very important.
You know, when I talk to some of the younger employees today, you know, we live in a world of where we can work from home. So a lot of younger people don't have the full office experience until they go to the office. But once you have gone to the office for a few years, you can work from home and get things done. If you draw an analogy to that, right? All the yogis, you know, Dayananda Saraswati ji, you know, the Ramana Maharshi, Paramahamsa, they don't need to go to the temple. They can see the Ishvara everywhere. But those of us mortal souls, until we achieve that kind of awareness, you have to go to a place where you can get all your senses, you know, into and then realize the Brahman there. But very, very clear to whoever asked the question and to everybody in the audience, Hinduism and Sanatana Dharma has been very clear. God is not sitting in the temple waiting for you.
Yeah, it's everywhere.
It has been cleared over and over again.
Its presence in one place so that your buddhi gets used to seeing the presence of Ishvara, because we are not used to seeing the presence of Ishvara.
Right. So I get used to it. Exactly. And again, we go to many conferences, and I give the example. A conference happens, everybody comes, something happens and everybody leaves.
Yeah.
Same thing, right? You can always, why do people come together? The temples has been part of that experience. Very good. Thank you. The question is slightly confusing, but there's one question is, if Brahman is Gunatita, and how is it that he is actually creating this world, right? How fair is it to say that the whole Jagat is due to Maya, Shakti or Brahman, when the basic premise is that Brahman has no gunas, and therefore even no Maya Shakti. So is Maya Shakti a guna, if you call him Gunatita?
Yeah. So it's actually very interesting. Now just take your own, the dream world that we create every night, right? So the dream world that you see everything, mountains, rivers, characters, interaction between characters, people gathering experiences, right? Now, the real you, right? Do you actually get caught in anything that you have created? No. So the entire dream world depends upon you, but you neither become mountain, nor you become river, nor you become the characters. If you actually became the characters, when you woke up, they will all be sticking to you, but nothing sticks to you. So what does it mean? So similarly, that's why if the creation was real, this problem would come. But the creation itself is as though. As though doesn't mean it's an illusion. Please, Maya doesn't mean illusion. Maya means that it is the potential that the awareness has. Without undergoing any change, it manifests the universe. And the universe is also not an illusion. It has empirical reality. It has empirical reality, but it is not absolutely real because it has its being in that Brahman. So that all has to be understood, right? So there is a distinction between Pratibhasika Mithya and Vyavaharika Mithya. Rope snake is Pratibhasika. It's our personal projection. Pot clay is not it's not an illusion. There is some empirical reality, but it is also Mithya. So,
yeah, wonderful. The definition I have seen for Maya is looking at something and thinking it is something else. Looking at the rope and thinking it's a snake is Maya. and not realizing the true, not realizing what it is Maya. So there are two aspects to it. One, first of all, getting confused. Second, not seeing what it is. The two aspects of Maya. Thank you for that. Somebody's asking the exact name of the book and where they can get it.
Yeah, exactly. So this book is it's called Sadachara. And in fact, as I keep thanking Nitinji, he recommended, because even I did not know this book, and he said that it was called Sadachara Anusandhanam. So this is the book, and it is available. So it has 54 verses, and so you can get it. Yeah.
Wonderful. Lot of people are asking, where can they follow your work? Where can they contact you? Is Wisdom for Rishis a place for people to go?
Wisdom of Rishis is my website, and you can, contact me there. And I have Instagram, so you can follow me. So you will come to know all my programs, all my retreats. I do retreats all over the world. So I would love to, and I do online classes. So, you can join me anywhere, and it'll be really a pleasure to share this knowledge with you.
Neema ji, thank you so much for the passion and enthusiasm with which you shared this Sadachara book. I'm going to find it and start reading it. So the Nitin ji and the team, thank you very much. So we now conclude this Saturday evening session in Indian Standard Time. And we'll again meet at 7 o'clock Sunday morning IST with another new talk. And this time we have the pleasure to continue. This has been a multi-week series on Shankara Charitam, a modern retelling by Sri Ramesh Venkatraman. So we will see you all bright and early in Indian Standard Time, 7 o'clock, 7 a.m. or 6:30 p.m. on Saturday for those of us in California and the West Coast. Thank you very much. Jai Jai Shankara, Hara Hara Shankara. Thank you, Neema ji, once again.